The thing about overseeing a Deathworld species integration program, Velkoth reflected as his antennae drooped to their lowest possible angle, was that nobody ever warned you about the helpers. The human stood in the center of the orientation chamber, hand raised so high and enthusiastically that she was practically vibrating. Holographic death statistics floated around her head, a particularly grim compilation showing that 73% of Deathworld recruits didn't survive the first assessment phase. The red numbers cast an ominous glow across the smooth metallic walls. Yes, recruit Harlow? Velkoth's mandibles clicked precisely 3 times. His 6 compound eyes focused on the small bipedal creature who'd somehow made it through preliminary screening. I just want you to know, Harlow beamed, her ponytail bouncing as she gestured expansively with both arms, that I'm here to help with absolutely anything you need. Testing dangerous equipment? I'll volunteer. Need someone to demonstrate safety protocols? I'm your human. In the back corner of the chamber, a tall avian observer with silver feathers and a sharp beak shifted uncomfortably, its wings tucking tighter against his body. Commander Thexon, standing beside Velkoth at the instructor's podium, felt his scales flush slightly purple. His forked tongue flicked out once. Recruit, the orientation hasn't actually. Oh, I know, Harlow interrupted cheerfully, already walking toward the holographic display. But I figured if I volunteer for the scary stuff first, it'll make everyone else feel better about their chances. It's like taking one for the team, you know? She reached out to touch a floating statistic showing 17 different ways the atmospheric stress test could cause organ failure. Her hand went straight through the hologram and hit the emergency activation panel behind it. Alarms didn't sound. That would have been too merciful. Instead, the floor panels in the orientation chamber reconfigured, dropping half the room, including Harlow, into the atmospheric adjustment pit normally used for Week 3 training. Fascinating, Velkoth observed, his antennae now vibrating rapidly. She's managed to skip directly to advanced environmental protocols. Thexon's tail had gone completely rigid. Magistrate, that pit cycles through 15 different atmospheric compositions, including methane saturation and… I know what it does, Commander. Velkoth's chitin darkened slightly. I designed it. They both peered down into the pit, where Harlow was climbing to her feet, completely unharmed by the 3-meter drop. Around the upper rim of the chamber, 4 insectoid junior staffers with multiple eye stalks and thin, spindly limbs had frozen in place, their mandibles hanging open. Wow, Harlow's voice echoed up cheerfully. Is this part of the tour? This is so cool. What do all these vents do? Do not touch the… Velkoth began. Harlow touched the vent. A blast of compressed nitrogen filled the pit, flash freezing the temperature to -40 degrees. Frost spread across the walls in intricate patterns. Huh, Harlow said, her breath now visible in great puffs. She hugged herself and bounced on her toes. Chilly, is this like a cold weather survival thing? Oh man, I should have brought my jacket. Hey, do you want me to test how long humans can last in here? I can totally time it. She pulled out her personal comm device, which somehow still functioned despite the temperature, and started a timer. Velkoth's mandibles clicked so rapidly they became a continuous buzz. Extract her, now. The emergency retrieval system engaged, mechanical arms extending down into the pit. Harlow, thinking this was part of the test and wanting to be helpful, grabbed onto one of the arms with both hands. Oh, are these the rescue protocols? I can show you how much weight they support. She hung from the arms, swinging her legs. See? Probably rated for way more than human body weight. You guys did a great job engineering these. The arm, not designed for swinging, sparked. Thexon's scales were now definitely purple. She's going to break the retrieval system. Yes, Velkoth agreed, his tail feathers lashing behind him. She is. The arm lifted Harlow back to the main floor, where she landed in a crouch that would have impressed a feline species. A squat, toad-like alien technician with wet, bumpy green skin and protruding eyes hopped backward 3 full meters. That was amazing, Harlow announced, brushing frost from her shoulders. What's next? Oh, are we doing the environmental endurance bay? I read about that in the prep materials. Velkoth's antennae perked up slightly. Perhaps this human had some sense after all. Every word, especially the parts about how previous Deathworld species had a 60% fatality rate in the thermal adaptation zones. Harlow's enthusiasm had not dimmed even slightly, which is why I'm volunteering to go first, so you can see what humans need help with, and then you can adjust the difficulty for other species. Thexon leaned closer to Velkoth. Is she actually trying to sacrifice herself for hypothetical other recruits? I believe so, Velkoth clicked quietly. Which means she either doesn't understand the danger or understands it perfectly and has decided to ignore it. Both possibilities are terrifying. Agreed. Harlow was already walking toward the exit corridor that led to the environmental endurance bay, her stride confident and purposeful. A reptilian administrator with dark red scales and a clipboard pressed itself against the wall as she passed, its tail curling protectively around its feet. Velkoth and Thexon exchanged a look, compound eyes to vertical pupils, and followed. The environmental endurance bay was Magistrate Velkoth's pride and achievement. The massive dome contained 6 distinct climate zones, each capable of producing conditions lethal to most galactic species. Heat shimmer rose from the thermal sector. Frost crept across the cryogenic barriers. The atmospheric pressure differential zone had cracked 2 observation windows during last month's calibration. Harlow pressed her face against the reinforced entrance glass, both palms flat against the surface. "This is incredible," she breathed, leaving a small fog circle from her exhale. "You can see all the different zones from here? Oh, is that a sandstorm in the desert section and lightning in the storm quadrant? You guys really went all out." "Recruit Harlow," Velkoth began, his mandibles clicking in what he hoped was an authoritative pattern. "The standard protocol is 3 weeks of preparation before. I'm ready now." Harlow spun around, ponytail whipping. "I've been doing cold showers and hot yoga to prepare. Plus, I'm from Minnesota, so I'm basically pre-adapted to temperature extremes." Thexon's tongue flicked out uncertainly. "What is a Minnesota?" "A Deathworld region within the Deathworld," Velkoth muttered, pulling up Earth's climate data on his wrist display. "Apparently it features both extreme cold and extreme heat, along with hostile insect populations and—" his antennae drooped again. "This explains so much." Harlow had already located the entry panel. "So do I just press this green button?" "Absolutely not." Velkoth lurched forward, his chitinous legs carrying him faster than he'd moved in cycles. "That initiates the full—" Harlow pressed the button. She pressed it because it was green, and in her mind, green meant go, and going meant helping, and helping meant volunteering to test the system so others would be safer. The fact that this particular green button initiated a synchronized stress test across all 6 climate zones simultaneously was information she didn't have. The dome's interior exploded into chaos. Through the observation windows, Velkoth watched in mounting horror as the thermal zone spiked to 80 degrees Celsius while the cryozone plummeted to -60. The sandstorm intensified to Category 5. The lightning quadrant began producing strikes every 2-3 seconds. The pressure differential started fluctuating wildly, and the toxic atmosphere sector Velkoth's antennae went completely flat, began venting compounds that had killed the last 3 test subjects from the Rigelian core. Harlow, standing in the entry vestibule, peered through the glass at the apocalypse she'd accidentally created. "Oh no," she said, and Velkoth felt a brief moment of relief that she recognized the danger. Then she continued, "This is supposed to build up gradually, isn't it? I think I skipped ahead. Here, let me see if I can reset it. Do not touch anything else." Velkoth and Thexon shouted in unison, their voices creating a discordant harmony of clicks and hisses. Behind them, a floating jellyfish-like creature with trailing bioluminescent tentacles drifted past in the corridor, pulsing with what might have been alarm. Harlow's hand was already on the door release. "I should go in and manually shut down the systems, right? I caused this, so I should fix it." "The protocols require atmospheric stabilization before," Velkoth began. Harlow opened the door. Several things happened at once. First, the pressure differential tried to explosively decompress the vestibule. Harlow grabbed the doorframe with both hands, her Deathworld muscle density allowing her to hold position against the wind that would have liquefied a standard galactic citizen. Second, the toxic atmosphere began seeping through the opening. Harlow wrinkled her nose. "Smells like a gas station. Are those sulfur compounds?" "Yes," Velkoth managed weakly, "and cyanide derivatives and—" "Oh, I can hold my breath," Harlow announced brightly. She took an enormous gulp of air, puffed out her cheeks, and stepped into the chaos. The door sealed behind her. Velkoth and Thexon stood frozen at the observation window, watching the small human figure march purposefully through environmental conditions that had memorial plaques dedicated to their victims. Harlow walked through the thermal zone, sweat immediately soaking through her uniform. She gave a thumbs up to the window. She jogged through the cryo zone, her ponytail becoming temporarily rigid with frost. Another thumbs up. The sandstorm hit her like a physical wall. She leaned into it, shielding her eyes with one arm, still holding her breath. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going. Her other arm emerged from the sand cloud with a third thumbs up. How long can humans hold their breath? Thexon whispered, his scales now a deep purple that was trending toward black. According to my data, Velkoth clicked faintly, the average is 30 to 90 seconds. Exceptional individuals can reach 2 minutes. They both checked the chronometer. Harlow had been in the toxic atmosphere for 90 seconds and counting. She'd reached the central control column, the manual override that required a command code and two-handed operation. She studied it for a moment, still visibly holding her breath, her cheeks now slightly purple. Then she did what any helpful, well-intentioned human would do when confronted with a complex problem. She hit it. Specifically, she slapped the control column with both palms in frustration, apparently hoping percussive maintenance might work. It did. The entire system crashed and rebooted. All 6 climate zones immediately reset to standard galactic comfortable, 22 degrees Celsius, standard pressure, breathable nitrogen-oxygen mix. Harlow finally exhaled, gasped in clean air, and beamed at the observation window. She waved both arms over her head in triumph. I fixed it, her muffled voice came through the intercom. See, I told you I could help. Although, I think maybe the entry protocol needs a clearer warning label, for next time. Velkoth's antennae had achieved an angle he didn't know was physically possible. They'd actually drooped backward over his head. Beside him, a crystalline maintenance worker with geometric features and glowing blue internal patterns was making a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Thexon's tail had gone from rigid to completely limp, dragging on the floor behind him. Test. She just percussive maintained a system worth 40 million credits. And it worked, Velkoth added, his voice hollow. It actually worked. Harlow was heading back toward the exit, her stride bouncy despite having just survived 6 different forms of environmental apocalypse. She paused by the toxic atmosphere vent and sniffed experimentally. You know what? She called toward the intercom. If you added some neutralizing filters here and here, she pointed at 2 junction points, you could probably reduce the toxicity by like 30% and save on atmospheric recycling costs. Velkoth pulled up the environmental engineering schematics. She was right. She was absolutely, impossibly, infuriatingly right. Commander, Velkoth clicked very quietly, his mandibles barely moving, I need to update my resignation letter. Get in line, Thexon hissed, his forked tongue flickering with distress. Harlow emerged from the decompression vestibule, her hair slightly singed, her uniform torn in 3 places, frost still melting on her shoulders, sand in her boots, and somehow even more enthusiastic than before. That was incredible. She bounced on her toes, shaking sand out of her ponytail. What's next? Oh, the Nutritional Stress Lab, right? I've been so excited about that one. Velkoth's wristcom buzzed. A message from the medical wing. Magistrate, we've been monitoring recruit vitals. Her stress hormones indicate enjoyment, requesting clarification. He looked at Harlow, who was now doing stretches as if preparing for exercise, her face flushed with genuine excitement and helpfulness. Clarification, Velkoth clicked into his comm, is that we have miscategorized this species' survival instinct. It's not absent. It's simply routed through a psychological need to be helpful that overrides all self-preservation. That's worse, the medical tech responded. So much worse, Velkoth agreed. Harlow finished her stretches and looked at him expectantly, her eyes bright with the terrifying earnestness of someone who genuinely, deeply wanted to volunteer for whatever fresh horror awaited in the Nutritional Stress Lab. Shall we? She asked cheerfully, gesturing toward the corridor that led to the sterile white room where 17 different lethal compounds awaited testing. Velkoth's antennae had completely given up. They hung limply like wilted plants. Yes, he clicked in defeat. Let us proceed to the next phase of your systematic destruction of everything I've built. Harlow beamed. You're such a good teacher, I can already tell I'm learning so much. Behind them, Thexon made a sound like a deflating tire. His scales had achieved a purple so deep, it was nearly ultraviolet. They walked down the corridor toward the Nutritional Stress Lab. A small crustacean-like alien with multiple legs and eye stalks scrambled out of their path, pressing itself into a wall alcove. Velkoth didn't blame it. The magistrate pulled up his facility roster on his wrist display, scrolling through the list of upcoming tests. Standard procedure required 3 weeks minimum between each phase. psychological counseling between major assessments, graduated exposure to ensure trainee survival. Harlow was humming, actually humming, a cheerful, bouncy tune that echoed off the sterile corridor walls. "Recruit Harlow," Velkoth ventured, his mandibles clicking with careful precision. "Are you aware that the nutritional stress test has a 40% fatality rate?" "Oh, yes," Harlow nodded enthusiastically. "That's exactly why I want to volunteer first. See, if you test everything on me and I react badly, you'll know to adjust portions or preparation methods for other species. I'm basically the canary in the coal mine." "The what in the what now?" Thexon's tongue flicked in confusion. "Earth reference," Velkoth muttered. "They used to send small birds into toxic environments to see if they died before sending in miners. And this is the example she chose to compare herself to." "Yes, the bird that dies first, correct, and she sounds proud about it, extremely proud." They'd reached the nutritional stress lab. Through the observation window, Velkoth could see rows of specimen containers, each one glowing with ominous bioluminescence. The analysis equipment hummed at lethal frequencies. The reinforced glass cabinets contained compounds that 47 different species had classified as absolutely not edible under any circumstances. Harlow pressed her face against the observation window, both palms on the glass again. "Are those the test samples? They're so colorful. Oh wow, is that one moving? That's so cool, you guys have such a comprehensive setup." Velkoth checked his resignation letter one more time, then pulled open the lab door. "After you, recruit," he clicked, his antennae drooping in preemptive mourning. "Try not to volunteer for everything at once." "No promises," Harlow chirped, bouncing through the doorway. "I'm here to help." In the distance, somewhere deeper in the facility, an alarm finally started blaring. 15 minutes too late, as was becoming tradition with this particular human. Velkoth's antennae perked up slightly. At least something was working according to protocol. The nutritional stress lab had been designed with one guiding principle: keep the lethal substances away from anyone stupid enough to ingest them. Harlow, Velkoth was discovering, had never met a safety protocol she couldn't accidentally circumvent through sheer enthusiasm. "So these containers," Harlow gestured at the glowing specimen cabinets with both hands, nearly knocking over a rack of analysis equipment, "they're all things that are poisonous to most species, right? And you're testing to see what Deathworlders can tolerate?" "In extremely controlled microdoses," Velkoth clicked emphatically, his antennae rigid with stress. "Administered over a period of weeks, with full medical monitoring and—" Harlow had already opened Cabinet 7. A slug-like medical observer with translucent skin and visible internal organs made a wet squelching sound of alarm from its position by the monitoring station. "Recruit, step away from the—" Thexon began, but Harlow was already lifting out a container of concentrated Furelian root extract, a substance so toxic that 3 drops could induce paralysis in species with standard metabolisms. She unscrewed the lid and sniffed. "Oh, cinnamon! This smells like cinnamon!" She looked delighted. "Is this like a spice tolerance test? Because I should tell you, I once did a hot wing challenge at a restaurant and made it to the level they call medical waiver required." "That is not cinnamon." Velkoth's mandibles clicked so fast they created a humming sound. "That is a concentrated neurotoxin that—" Harlow dipped her finger in and tasted it. Time seemed to stop. Velkoth's antennae went completely horizontal, vibrating at a frequency usually reserved for imminent death scenarios. Thexon's scales flushed so dark they were nearly black. From somewhere in the medical wing 3 floors down, alarms began shrieking. Harlow's face scrunched up thoughtfully. "Huh," she said, smacking her lips. "It does taste like cinnamon, maybe a little spicier, like cinnamon mixed with, I want to say, ginger?" She looked at the label, squinting. "Oh, Furelian root extract. Is Furella a planet? Do they have a lot of spicy food there?" "They don't have food anymore," Velkoth clicked faintly. "The planet was sterilized by a neighboring system specifically because of that root." "Oh," Harlow looked genuinely sad. "That's awful. Well, hey, at least now you know humans can eat it safely. See, I'm helping establish baseline tolerances." She beamed and took another taste. "Actually, I bet this would be great in curry." A medical technician burst through the lab door, a tripedal being with gray rubbery skin and a single large eye that took up most of its head. It was carrying an emergency medical kit in 2 of its 3 arms and waving a scanner with the 3rd. "Magistrate, the bioreadings indicated immediate toxic ingestion. We need to—" The technician stopped, staring at Harlow, who waved cheerfully with her contaminated finger. I'm fine, Harlow assured it. Just doing some taste tests. This one's really good. The technician's single eye dilated to twice its normal size. It slowly backed out of the room, still holding the medical kit, and closed the door with a soft click. Did I do something wrong? Harlow asked, finally picking up on the room's atmosphere of existential horror. No, Velkoff lied, his chitin darkening. Please continue. Show us what else you can help with. Harlow brightened immediately. Okay, what about this one? She moved to Cabinet 12, which housed crystallized venom from the death moons of Sector 9. The container had 17 warning labels in 8 languages. She opened it. Thexon made a sound like a pressure valve releasing. I'm calling the Memorial Mason. We'll need a new plaque. But Harlow didn't eat the venom crystals. Instead, she held one up to the light, examining it with genuine scientific curiosity. These are beautiful. They refract light like quartz. Are they silicon-based? Oh, or maybe carbon lattice structures. She turned to Velkoff. Do you guys analyze the molecular composition before testing? Because if you map the crystalline structure, you might be able to predict toxicity based on... She slipped. It was a small puddle of condensation from the cryogenic specimen storage. Harlow's boot hit the wet spot, her arms windmilled for balance, and the venom crystal flew from her hand in a perfect arc. Velkoff watched it tumble through the air in slow motion, his compound eyes tracking its trajectory toward the molecular destabilization field that absolutely should not come into contact with concentrated venom crystals because the resulting reaction would. The crystal hit the field. A burst of purple light filled the lab, followed by a sound like a harp string snapping. The destabilization field collapsed into itself, taking the venom crystal's toxic properties with it and leaving behind a perfectly harmless glass-like ornament. Harlow caught herself on a counter, straightened up, and looked at the now inert crystal remains. Oops, she said. I think I broke your... Wait, she picked up the neutralized crystal shard, examining it. Did that field just denature the venom structure? That's incredible. You could use this as a detoxification method. Here, let me see if... Do not touch anything else. Velkoff's voice came out as barely a whisper. His antennae had achieved a drooping angle that suggested complete psychological defeat. A thin, stick insect-like engineer with multiple joints in its 4 limbs was passing by the observation window. It took one look at the scene inside, reversed direction, and walked away very quickly on its 2 spindly legs. Harlow, interpreting Velkoff's quiet tone as disappointment, immediately tried to help more. I'm so sorry. I can totally fix this. What if I... She reached for another cabinet. Recruit Harlow, Thexon interjected, his tail now dragging limply behind him like a dead weight. Perhaps we should proceed to the next evaluation phase. Oh, yes, there's more? Harlow's eyes lit up. What's next? Some kind of endurance test? Psychological stress evaluation? Ooh, or combat training. Velkoff pulled up his facility schedule on his wrist display, scrolling through with one chitinous hand while the other massaged his mandibles. Every remaining test had a fatality rate above 30%. The final assessment, the one they called the Memorial Wall trial because it required updating the Memorial Wall afterward, had never been survived by anyone on their first attempt. An idea formed in his mind. It was not a good idea. It was possibly the worst idea he'd ever had. But watching Harlow accidentally neutralize military-grade toxins through slapstick comedy had broken something fundamental in his risk assessment protocols. There is one final test, Velkoff clicked slowly. The comprehensive survival gauntlet. It combines every challenge into a single trial. And the survival rate? Harlow asked, bouncing eagerly on her toes. 0% on the first attempt. Perfect. Harlow clapped her hands together. That means I can be the first. That'll be so helpful for establishing human parameters. Thexon's forked tongue flickered weakly. Magistrate, are you certain? No, Velkoff interrupted. I am certain of nothing anymore. My antennae have forgotten how to point upward. My mandibles click in my sleep. This human has violated every safety protocol we have, survived things that killed decorated warriors, and somehow improved our systems through catastrophic failure. His compound eyes fixed on Harlow. If she wants to volunteer for the Memorial Wall trial, who am I to stop the inevitable? The comprehensive survival gauntlet occupied the lowest level of the facility, accessible only through a freight elevator that groaned ominously during the descent. The shaft walls were lined with memorial plaques. Velkoff counted 47 of them as they dropped into the depths. Harlow read each name they passed. Wow, you really keep thorough records. That's so respectful. Hey, after I do this, could you tell me about some of these people? I'd love to hear their stories. She thought she was going to survive to hear stories afterward. Velkoth's antennae somehow found a new, lower drooping angle. The elevator opened onto a massive underground arena. The space was roughly circular, maybe 100 meters across, with observation platforms around the perimeter. The floor was scarred with blast marks, claw gouges, and several suspicious stains that Velkoth's maintenance staff had long since stopped trying to identify. A hooded figure with too many joints in its arms was leaving through a side exit as they entered, carrying what looked like repair equipment. It didn't make eye contact. This is amazing. Harlow walked to the center of the arena, spinning in a circle with her arms out. It's like a really intense gym. What's the challenge? Velkoth moved to the control platform, where Thexon was already pulling up the trial parameters. A floating spherical drone with multiple camera lenses drifted into position to record for the training archives, or, more likely, the memorial documentation. The gauntlet combines environmental stress, physical endurance, toxin exposure, and adaptive problem-solving, Velkoth explained, his mandibles clicking with formal precision. It lasts 1 hour. There are no breaks. Medical intervention is available, but results in automatic failure. And if I succeed? Harlow asked, still smiling that terrible, helpful smile. Then you become certified as not just a trainee, but an instructor qualified to train others. Even better? Harlow started doing jumping jacks to warm up. Then I can help even more people. Thexon leaned close to Velkoth. You realize that if she somehow survives this, we'll have to let her teach? Commander, Velkoth clicked quietly. Look at me. Really look. Do I appear to be someone operating under the assumption that rational outcomes still apply? Thexon studied his colleague. The Veshik's antennae were draped over his shoulders like wilted vegetation. His chitin had darkened to nearly black. His mandibles twitched at irregular intervals. Fair point, Thexon conceded. Velkoth activated the gauntlet. The arena floor split open in 6 places, revealing the apparatus of controlled suffering, atmospheric vents, temperature generators, projectile launchers, obstacle configurations, and a central column containing the very worst nutritional compounds the galaxy had to offer. Phase 1, Velkoth announced through the intercom. Environmental adaptation, beginning now. The temperature spiked to 60 degrees Celsius while simultaneously dropping to -40 in alternating zones. Harlow jogged between them, treating it like interval training. This is like a sauna and a cold plunge, she called up to the observation platform. Very trendy on Earth right now. Phase 2 introduced projectiles, foam ammunition designed to test reflexes and pain tolerance. Harlow dodged most of them with surprising grace, got hit by several, and at one point caught one and threw it back at the launcher, accidentally jamming the mechanism. Sorry, she yelled. I'll fix it. She ran toward the jammed launcher. Do not fix it. Velkoth and Thexon shouted in unison, but Harlow was already yanking the stuck projectile free, causing the launcher to immediately fire a burst that she had to dive under. Rolling across the arena floor and coming up in a crouch that would have earned approval from any combat instructor, a serpentine observer with dozens of small legs along its body and heat-sensing pits instead of eyes coiled nervously on an upper observation deck, its forked tongue tasting the air in rapid flicks. Phase 3 released atmospheric toxins. Harlow wrinkled her nose, held her breath again, and kept moving through the obstacle course that had risen from the floor panels. Phase 4 was nutritional stress. The central column opened, revealing samples of every compound from the lab, now aerosolized into a mist that filled the arena. Harlow breathed it in. She coughed twice, wiped her streaming eyes, and kept going. Velkoth's wrist display showed her biometrics, elevated heart rate but stable. Stress hormones present but not critical, blood oxygen slightly low but compensating, and his antennae twitched in confusion. Endorphins, lots of endorphins. She was enjoying this. 15 minutes remaining, Velkoth announced, his voice hollow. Harlow had reached the final challenge, a vertical climb up a 30-meter wall while the arena cycled through every previous stress simultaneously. Temperature swings, projectiles, toxins, the works. She started climbing. A massive arthropod maintenance chief with a heavy carapace and powerful mandibles was welding something on the observation level. It stopped, turned to watch Harlow scale the wall, then very deliberately put down its welding torch and left the area. 20 meters up, Harlow's hand slipped on frost accumulation. She caught herself with her other hand, found a new grip, kept climbing. 25 meters. A projectile hit her shoulder. She grunted, adjusted, kept climbing. 28 meters. The toxic mist was thickest here. She was coughing continuously now, tears streaming down her face. "Recruit, you can stop," Velkoth called out, something uncomfortably close to concern creeping into his clicks. "Medical intervention is available. I'm good." Harlow gasped between coughs. "Almost there. Just gotta." She reached for the next handhold. Her fingers closed on the emergency shutdown bar, the bar that was supposed to be clearly marked and impossible to grab accidentally. The bar that Harlow's helpful, determined, survival-overriding common-sense instinct had mistaken for a handhold. She pulled herself up using it. Every system in the arena shut down instantly. Harlow hauled herself over the top of the wall, rolled onto the observation platform, and lay on her back breathing hard. Frost melted on her uniform. Small burns marked her arms from projectile impacts. She was covered in sweat and coughing from the toxins. She was smiling. "Did I pass?" she called out weakly. Velkoth checked the trial parameters. She'd completed the course. The fact that she'd done so by accidentally triggering the emergency shutdown, which technically counted as adaptive problem-solving under stress, meant that by the letter of the regulations— "Yes," Velkoth clicked, his antennae finally, mercifully achieving a neutral position. Not happy, not alarmed, just, "W done, you passed." Harlow sat up, pumped both fists in the air. "Yes, okay, when do I start teaching? I have so many ideas, like what if we added more warning labels? And maybe some instructional videos? Oh, and I could demonstrate the safe way to handle toxic substances by showing all the unsafe ways first so people know what not to." "No," Thexon said flatly, his scale still deep purple. "The commander is correct," Velkoth agreed. His mandibles clicked with the rhythm of someone who had achieved enlightenment through suffering. "Recruit Harlow, you have demonstrated that humans are, in fact, trainable. You have also demonstrated that humans should never, under any circumstances, be allowed to train others." Oh, Harlow's face fell. "But I wanted to help." "You have helped," Velkoth assured her, which was technically true. "You've helped us realize that our entire assessment system requires redesign. You've helped us understand that Deathworld species don't follow the same survival logic as the rest of the galaxy. And you've helped me draft the most comprehensive resignation letter in the facility's history." "You're quitting?" Harlow looked genuinely distressed. "Because of me?" Velkoth's antennae actually perked up slightly. It might have been the first time all day that Harlow had correctly identified a causal relationship. "No," he clicked gently, surprising himself. "Because clearly someone needs to redesign this entire program to account for species whose idea of helping involves volunteering for toxin exposure and accidentally fixing equipment through percussive maintenance." Harlow brightened immediately. "I can help with that." "Absolutely not." "You're banned from helping," Thexon added, his tail finally showing signs of life. "But—" "You're certified," Velkoth interrupted. "Congratulations. You've passed Deathworld integration training with the highest survival rate we've ever recorded, 100%. You've also caused more facility damage than the previous 47 trainees combined. Please report to standard assignment processing and never volunteer for anything in my facility again." Harlow stood, brushed arena dust from her uniform, and extended her hand for a shake, a human gesture Velkoth had learned during her file review. He extended his chitinous hand and shook. "Thank you," Harlow said earnestly. "I learned so much. And hey, if you ever need someone to test new protocols, I'm totally available." "I will keep that in mind," Velkoth lied, his mandibles clicking in what might have been the Vesh-X equivalent of a tired smile, "and never, ever contact you." Harlow waved to both of them and headed toward the elevator, her stride still bouncy despite having survived certain death through sheer helpful determination. As the elevator doors closed, Velkoth turned to Thexon. "Update the memorial wall," the magistrate clicked. "Someone died?" "No. Add a plaque that says survived by Harlow, human, who helped." Thexon's scales finally began fading back toward their normal gray-green. "That's not how memorial walls work. Nothing about today has worked according to any rational system." Velkoth's antennae drooped one final time. "Why start now?" Somewhere 3 floors up, something crashed, followed by Harlow's muffled voice. "I'm okay. I was trying to help carry some equipment." Velkoth opened his resignation letter and changed the submission date to tomorrow. Some things, he reflected, even a Vesh-X's sense of duty couldn't survive.